Good afternoon and evening. My name is Daniel Cairns. I'm the Head of Enrolments for Ducere Global Business School. And I thank you for your attendance, be that evening, be that afternoon, as we know it is for some, and wherever else you are in the world. I thank you for joining. We've got a couple still coming through, so thank you for giving up your time. And I'm really keen tonight to more immediately get to our special guests as quickly as we can. Firstly, though, just some housekeeping. If you could raise your hand using the function down at the bottom so that I know you can hear me loud and clear. Wonderful, great to see, thank you kindly. And this is about you, and you're all obviously facing what is a significant life decision in an investment in yourself to undertake potentially undertake an MBA. We here at Ducere Global Business School understand that intimately and understand the gravity of the decision and want to provide you with as much information as possible, especially around what makes this MBA so unique as well. So very quickly, I'm going to give a quick overview, why we've designed it the way we do and a short range of benefits, but I'll move to our guests almost immediately so we can engage and so that you can ask questions relevant to your own circumstances and have our special guests answer them as well. We are a very socially conscious business that started first and foremost as a foundation. Funnily enough, for those of you that aren't aware, the Ducere Foundation actually runs children's literacy programs now in 25 countries across Africa, with the big goal of working in every country by 2025. It was born of a situation where our founder sent some books over to underprivileged schools that he visited while he was there, and that failed. Given that African children and Western cultured books are so far apart, he decided to not give up and instead print the children's stories they had told him while he was there. We then established the Ducere Global Business School in Melbourne, and through the inspiration of those children's stories, we learnt that harnessing the power of storytelling in any form of education is a powerful thing. So Matthew, our founder, then attracted 250 global leaders to our faculty who donated their time to be filmed so that their inspiring stories can also form part of our our course content. More so than that, though, there was a real challenge we saw within the current Australian MBA landscape around industry engagement. So whenever we design any program now, but especially their flagship MBA, this one in innovation and leadership, we design it with industry consultation. And that industry told us a few things, but number one, they told us that they're disappointed that education is way too fast falling behind the pace of change. And back then, fast approaching 10 years, to be honest, that was due to technological change. We live in a different world even than what it was 12 months ago. So the ability for us to further engage with industry and have the cornerstone of these programs based around deeper industry engagement through industry projects is the hallmark of what we do, and the benefit to our students will be demonstrated tonight through storytelling from my special guests. It is about you. So as I said, we'll facilitate the questions that we feel you want answered, but I'm also really keen for at any time that you have a question, for you to type it in the Q&A box down there or the chat. I'll manage them as we go. We may get to them straight away, or we may have it on an agenda item later on. But without further ado, I think it is time that I certainly make the most of the opportunity that we've given, that we've created tonight, and have two special guests, and also Oskar Santos, who many of you may know or have spoken with regarding your MBA decision as well. Firstly, on my top left there is Michelle Monaghan. Michelle is the Head of Partner Experience for the Make-A-Wish Foundation and very valued industry partner of Ducere, not once but twice now. Michelle, welcome and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
I look forward to learning a great deal more from you about your experience in the MBA as an industry partner as well. And then it is also my great pleasure to introduce Linda Taylor, not so, well, yeah, recent-ish graduate of the MBA program. More importantly, has a new role in risk and assurance manager at Keolis?
Yeah, Keolis Downer, Adelaide.
Yeah. Keolis Downer, Adelaide. Congratulations on the new role, Linda. How is it?
Thank you. It's really exciting. It's a role that is, obviously in my specialist area, but it's certainly a broader role than what I've had before. and there's there's some really good pathways for me to continue my career with the organization. So really exciting to be kicking off in a new job. So yeah, 2020, bring it on.
Yeah, isn't that great to look back on a year that has been so challenging for so many of us with a smile to say I achieved a great deal? And you're also recently appointed a board member of Writing for Disabled South Australia as well. Congratulations on your board appointment. That's brilliant. And look, from a personal perspective, your input into our recent virtual graduation left a really, really positive impact on many. It was inspiring as well. So thank you.
Thank
Um,
you.
as I said, it's about everyone tonight. But firstly, I'd like to ask Michelle what it was that drew Make-A-Wish Foundation to undertake a project as a part of an MBA. And did it turn out the way you thought, I guess, or was there a bit of risk that you thought that may come with that? What drew you to do a project?
Well, it was actually an opportunity that was being explored by a colleague that had moved on from Make-A-Wish. So I was actually really fortunate to be able to pick up the conversation that they had started with Oskar around the opportunity for us to, have a group of students work on, maybe a challenge or a problem that we had within the business. So for me, it was something that I had not personally been involved with. But it was certainly something that I saw great potential in for Make-A-Wish. So, whilst Make-A-Wish, we're quite an established brand. We've been in Australia for, since 1985. We've granted over 10,000 wishes. So, we're quite established. We're a very lean team though. So, for us, whilst we do have quite an established business, I just saw a really great opportunity to utilise the access to a student group to really help us with a specific area of Make-A-Wish, and that was around our value proposition for our corporate partners. So there was a very specific opportunity that I saw there, just to basically work with the group and see what we could unpack, see if we could try and finesse the value proposition for partners, and hopefully that would lead to being able to secure more partners and further support. So for me, it was quite exciting. I'd been at Make-A-Wish for 3 years at the time. So I saw that there was so much that we wanted to explore, but we didn't quite have the bandwidth, being quite a lean team. So it seems like a really good opportunity.
That's fantastic. And I guess that sort of a project piece would normally often be something that a consultancy firm would undertake. But Linda, I guess on the journey that you were on back then at the commencement of your decision-making process, I assume that you very much were like everyone in attendance. You've looked at a few options and you knew what appealed to you, and you spoke with myself, Josh, and understood there was a difference. What was it that drew you to this particular MBA, and how did the project model resonate with you?
So I guess that there was a few factors in the decision. The first one being the flexibility of being able to study online. So attending any MBA program in person just wasn't an option for me, because the role I was in at the time when I commenced, I was traveling really heavily. So it's just that's just not doable. And then looking at the options that they were at the time in MBAs that were delivered online, I guess that the real key thing for me was the practical application. So I'm no stranger to postgraduate study. I've got other postgraduate qualifications, but what I've really found is I learn best when I learn something and then understand it and then need to interpret it and apply it. I don't learn well by rote. And an MBA that's heavily academic focused, not that this MBA is not academic, but something that is really about regurgitating other information just isn't the right fit for me. And I really wanted that practical application. not just because that fits my learning style, but also, because I work in such a niche specialist area, and I have for over 20 years. I really wanted the opportunity to do things that were outside of the confines of my day-to-day role. So, it's that catch-22. You don't become experienced at something unless you get an opportunity to do it, but you don't get an opportunity to do something unless you've got a level of experience. And so the industry projects for me are a way to break beyond, what's in my day-to-day role. And that really appealed to me from just from, what I'd be doing. But I guess the real, what really convinced me, that last sort of kick to, yes, I'm going to do this, is just the caliber of the organizations that these projects are with.
That brings me to ask, what were the 3 projects that you worked on during your time?
So my number one project was United Nations. So I remember getting the phone call that, this is the project that you're on. And it was just a surreal moment for me to go, well, here I am, in little old Adelaide, South Australia. I work in the field of risk and safety, and I'm doing some work for the United Nations. It was such a surreal career moment. To get that call. So yeah, that was a project for specifically for the United Nations Technology Innovation Lab, and we looked at how technology could empower women in developing countries. So that was just incredibly powerful to be able to do that. The second project that I was on was with Spotless. So a completely different project, different organization, different focus. So with Spotless, the project was exploring opportunities in their food management area for menu management, and basically introducing technology for the end-to-end process from procurement through to that customer experience. And that was a great project as well. I was able to draw on my personal experience with implementing enterprise systems in the risk space, but again in a completely different context. And then the third project that I had the privilege to be a co-leader on was for Make-A-Wish Australia. So again, these organisations are large organizations you read about in the paper, you see on the news, and yeah, it's an opportunity that I certainly don't get in my day-to-day.
There are 3 amazing projects, and I reached out to one of those project sponsors recently to congratulate her. I think it was the project sponsor from the United Nations has recently been appointed to a very, very amazing position globally. So Diane, her name is, who is also an MBA alumni, which is often where we find industry projects. Once students complete, they come back and say, look, now I've a few years in the workforce, or not in the workforce, but now in a more senior role or whatever it may be, and I feel that this may be a great opportunity to do an MBA project. And that's exactly what Diane did, and the impact of that particular project, as there is with many, is long lasting and real. And I guess that brings me back to Michelle to say, with the actual project, whilst we don't want to go into the specifics of drilling deep into that, what was the standard that was produced by the students for your request for service, and what was the outcome of it in the end?
Yeah, well, being the first project that I was involved with, I wasn't too sure of just how much detail the students were able to gather. And to be really honest, I was absolutely blown away with the findings and just the attention to detail and the incredible conversations that we were having at each of our weekly meetings across the project period, because everyone was just so invested. So for me, it was really quite wonderful. I was hoping that perhaps the group could, look at ways of demonstrating the impact of wish granting, help us uncover what do our partners, our current partners, how did they find supporting Make-A-Wish? What did they get out of it? What drew them to Make-A-Wish? So I was hoping that I might be able to come away with a few proof points and to really, as I say, finesse and help validate our proposition, especially for corporate partners. And each week there were just the level of the conversation that we were having, everyone was really invested. So the group was broken into areas, like everyone would have their component of what they would look into. So some of the students we really focused on theory of change, and then others were looking at product development. The first-hand research that was able to be done was limited because of COVID. So, it was really great to work week on week with the group to figure out what could I do to facilitate access to the audiences that they needed to be able to unpack as much as they could about their experiences to help really finesse our proposition. And the group was really able to do quite a lot, even though we were quite limited. So the first-hand research with wish families in particular, because of the climate was really challenging, that we were able to work together to identify past survey results, whether it's from volunteer groups or wish surveys. So when we have wishes, we survey suppliers. I was able to provide a lot of access to some of our existing partners. And so there was ways around that to be able to provide enough detail from within Make-A-Wish. And the group was also really active outside of what I provided, just doing lots of research on our brand. So I've got to say it really blew me away, the level of detail that was pulled together, and just so much investment of time. It was really quite amazing to see. I felt that everyone was by the end of the project, I think everyone was actually quite excited because we came away with some really good results that have, since the project, led to some really great things at Make-A-Wish.
So you've actually implemented some of the recommendations the students came up with?
Yeah, definitely. It was really good. And I think it was so wonderful just to have a group of people invest their time and really validate what we knew we could and should focus on in that sort of corporate partnership space. So, we've been able to implement streams of work across the business where, we're developing products, and we're just really trying to explore opportunities to not only retain existing partners, but also to attract new partners. So many of the ideas have really sort of set us up to really prioritize what we knew we wanted to achieve. And through the project, it really just put a spotlight on those things. And we're slowly but surely working towards some of the areas that we hope we could that were identified as real opportunities for us.
I find that absolutely amazing, because when you think of I guess if you call them that, your customer, your client, the difference that can make to someone's life as well, in the end, can be absolutely amazing. Did you get that sense as well, Linda, at the onset of the project, that you were actually able to you're working towards making a true difference?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because we started the project just as COVID hit, and I think all of the personal hardships that the team were going through. We had some team members who had who were business owners who had their businesses completely shut. We had others who were taken off of their normal job and thrown into something completely different. Other people that were partially stood down, and some that had the opposite. But I think what the project did was it made us really focus more on we're going through a bit of a tough time, but oh gosh, what these Make-A-Wish families go through, and the level of impact that wishes have, from a psychological and physical benefit for the child to, the whole family, that none of us individually had that understanding, and that really, helped be a motivator and a driver through, what was really a tough time. Any time studying and working is challenging, but right at the start of COVID, it really, I think, made the whole team double down on our efforts,
That's
because we
fantastic.
became so inspired, and we had our weekly catch-ups with Michelle, and understanding what they were going through too. As Michelle said, they've been unable to fully deliver their program to wishes. They had really significant impact, as all businesses did, and some are still quite still in that mode, but it really made us I guess take stock, and then to be able to know that the effort that we put in, Michelle and the team, and Sally, the CEO of Make-A-Wish, firstly, appreciated the efforts that we did, and secondly, they've taken it on board, and we can see where that's going. It's really rewarding.
Many programs, I guess, spruik industry engagement. I think what you've just said sums it up best. In our intent is to provide true industry engagement, and that in terms of the course also goes further with the application of learning via your assignments, not exams. So for the benefit of the audience, we eliminated exams because we think they're a complete and utter waste of time. What they actually are is a cost-effective assessment tool. You fill out the yes or no answers, the A, B, C, or D. It goes into software now, and it spits out a grade. What's the benefit to a candidate for that? I really ask. I'm yet to also find a university that will sit down with you as an individual and go over your exam to teach you the correct answers to the questions you may have got wrong. That, to us, would be of benefit. So instead, you're graded on your assignments for the units, of which there are 9, and for the benefit of the audience, there's 3 projects. So that it all forms your unit grades across each, but you are empowered to choose the topics of your assignment, so you can actually apply the learning directly to your role or to the role you want to obtain as well. So the industry engagement is twofold. It's directly with people like Michelle and Make-A-Wish, but it's also the application of learning through the rest of the MBA, which I think, and we know, is true industry engagement, other than what is often spruiked as a nice byline to a program rather than the essence of industry engagement as well. It's very, very different.
Yeah, I think just on that, Daniel, one of the big differences with the industry engagement that I found is the organisations like Make-A-Wish, they're our client. We're working in a consulting capacity, and we're delivering according to a request for service from a client. And these industry projects, if you put a dollar value on them, they would easily, certainly the ones I've been involved in, easily be up in the 6 figures in terms of value, if they were delivered under a normal consultancy arrangement. And so I think that's really different to undertaking industry engagement as a university student, an MBA student, where you're undertaking research that is university driven, and is not it doesn't have that client consultant model. I think the two are very, very different, and that's certainly where I see one of the differences.
It's real, isn't it? So don't get me wrong. There's some programs out there that do have a fair degree of industry engagement, and some have a different model where it might be groups of 2 or 3 students all work on the same challenge, producing 20 different reports to the client around solving that challenge, and they'll handpick some good things out of some of them or whatnot. But Michelle, in your first perception of what it might be, as opposed to what the caliber of actual student, and I'll ask this of you, Linda, as well, the peer-to-peer learning side of things and the caliber of student that you found. Firstly, Michelle, did it exceed your expectations as that you had pre-project?
Absolutely. It was the group, there were 7 students from memory. So, 7 students with such varied backgrounds and such knowledge and experience that they were bringing to what we were looking at. So I was thinking that there would be a lot of research into, the charity landscape, both locally and globally. I thought there would be lots of research. I thought there might be some interviews here and there, but it was beyond that. The group really did invest themselves to go beyond what I thought might be quite a baseline in terms of, basic research, and they just really invested into who we are, what is our mission, where we sit in the charity landscape, and really kind of dove in and came up with some really great findings and some really great recommendations for what we could look towards or perhaps prioritize in terms of the evolution of our business partnerships team and our offering for partners. So it certainly did exceed the expectations, and I loved every single meeting. And I laugh because Linda and I, every meeting was just such a great conversation. And in between the meetings, just, the group would reach out if they need a little bit more guidance in terms of, or a little bit more access to one of, whether it was one of our business partners, a volunteer, our CEO, other leadership members. So it was really great just to be able to have that regular contact with the group, and they were completely invested. And I know that one of the questions that we've got was just around the duration of the project, but Linda, can you help me with that? I know we obviously had the weekly meetings, but was it 2-3 months?
I think 16 or 17 weeks.
Yeah, it's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, they're 16-week terms. So to assist in that, thank you for the question also from the audience around the project hours or the project duration in hours. So there's trimesters that are broken up into basically 16-week trimesters, and the project will be scoped roughly in the first week or two of the trimester, and then deliver in a real virtual, in this case, a virtual presentation at the end. But how many hours a week did you find you were committing to the project specific work? And also, I guess, how much work were you also doing on your assignment work on units other than the project?
So for me, I when I started the MBA, I started on a part-time basis. And when it's part-time in your first trimester, you do 2 subjects. And then second trimester, you do 1 subject and your first industry project. And so generally, the industry projects, I found I was committing probably around 4 to 5 hours minimum, depending on what phase of the project we were at. There's certain times where, there might be a big chunk of work to do to hit a milestone. And that's really about how you manage the task within the team. So, sometimes, things like, it might sound trivial, but, like formatting reports, and presentation, sometimes those things take a bit of time, and it depends on whether you're the one that stuck your hand up, as I tended to do, for doing that. But generally, that's around, what I was putting into fairly consistently into the projects themselves, and then generally with the with the subjects, probably around 7 to 8 hours a week. I tend to I tend to work better in blocks. So, I'd have a day a week where I would really dedicate, that would be my uni study day. And I was fortunate enough as well to have a flexible working arrangement in place with my employer. So working a 9-day fortnight. So that was a bit of a godsend as well. But on those other weekends, my family knew that basically one day a weekend, I was committing to study. And that just worked for me. Whereas, other students, I know in the teams that I was in, tended to sort of chunk it a little bit and spend, a couple of hours or an hour a day or so. And that just depends on your own personal sort of learning style and what fits your circumstances. And that's one of the great things about the way the MBA is structured, is that you can have that flexibility as long as you're hitting your time frames and your commitments for your project, and commitments you've made to your team members and your client, and also those other personal time frames for your study, for your subjects. I moved from part-time to full-time, so that that bumped my study load up, but that was a conscious decision that I made. So I found it didn't really make that much of a difference, to be honest, just because of the way the project and the subjects were structured. I think I ended up
kind of learn how to study and fit it in a different format, don't you? So I guess you become more efficient. So when you were doing 3 units and 1 project in a trimester, what was that workload like in terms of hours?
So I did the math before I before I committed to going full time, and I worked out that overall it only meant a couple of weeks less in time for each of the subjects. So it wasn't a huge difference, and it worked out to maybe a couple of hours extra a week, just to compress it. But then there was that benefit in getting through it quicker.
And everyone's different, aren't they?
They are, yeah. And also I found with the projects as well, with doing the 3 subjects over the trimester at the same time as that project, I was able to apply those learnings as I went along, a little bit differently in the second and third project that I did compared to the first one, where I was working part-time. So I'd done a little bit differently.
Wonderful. Now, for the benefit of the audience, I'd love to have you ask questions that are pertinent to your own circumstances of our special guests in Michelle and Linda. So feel free to punch any questions. I can see some coming through as we speak. But also then I just wanted to go back also a step and ask you about your thoughts before we do explain to the audience, and I have forgotten to do this, about learner, manager, leader through the 3 projects. We'll come to that shortly as well. But what was your perception of the peer group that you were working with throughout the MBA? Obviously worked with different people in each project. Have you made, what was the quality of, and what was the quality of the candidate like?
Look, pretty much consistently through the 3 projects, we had a little bit of a mix of 1 or 2 students who were, I guess, had come through from doing lower level study. So whether it's degree, graduate certificate, and moving up to the MBA without a significant amount of industry experience. But the clear majority, so I'd say 8 out of 10, were people who were very well established in their career in different fields. So people with a finance background, a marketing background, PR, and other specialist areas, but generally fairly well established in their careers. And so not everybody was, but certainly the majority, which was really good actually, because you get that nice mix of with that working with your peers where they may work in an area that you don't have exposure to, and so you're able to have that learning. And there was more than one occasion when I'd be on the phone to someone saying, I need help with my assignment, like I don't understand this concept, how did you interpret this? So not help with writing, just clarify, but that bouncing ideas off of each other, which was great, as well as with some of the maybe more inexperienced peers, having that opportunity to take them under your wing a little bit on the journey as well. And I think when we think about what we're, ultimately what we're aiming to be, and that is leaders, you lead by taking the people you work with you on that journey. And so that ability to peer mentor was really, I found really valuable, as well as me getting that from others. But overall, and when we talk about these industry projects being undertaken by students, they're not being undertaken by young students with minimal industry experience. They're being undertaken by a cohort of people who have significant industry experience in their own right. So, yeah.
And it could be daunting listening to this, thinking, oh, wow, am I up to it? There's many students that we find have experienced what we call the imposter syndrome. And I certainly went through it, having left school very early to pursue a career in hospitality before moving into business school much later. It's the fear of the unknown is what it essentially is in the end. But, and to overcome that is a massive sense of self-satisfaction and pride. But tell us about, and for the benefit of the audience tonight that are still either experiencing that or even feeling as though this is pretty daunting, these real projects with big companies and startups and whoever else it may be. Tell us how you progress though through the 3 projects, starting off as what we deem as a learner. How does that work?
Yeah, so when you go into your first project, there's you go in as a learner with students who are at the manager level and students who are at the leader level. That doesn't necessarily designate a hierarchy in the team, but what it indicates is where you are in your learning journey. So when you're coming in on that first project, and it is daunting, and you've got the benefit of other people in your team who have been there, and they're on their second or their third project. So it's really about stepping into that unknown, but you've got people who have been on the journey already and can take you along with them. And then one thing that I found really valuable, I was a bit skeptical, I have to admit, but in the end, one of the most valuable experiences for me is at the end of every project, that opportunity to reflect on what you've learned, on how the team worked, on what you might do differently. And when you take that next step into from a learner into a manager, or from a manager to a leader, it's really that time to think about what went really well, what would I do differently, how would I do it differently, and and that's how we grow. And I think again, that's one of the Ducere differences, is the ability to not just do one project but to do 3, and to step through that that progression as you do in your career, and you progress through your career, is so valuable. But also taking that time to reflect. And I guess the other thing too, and it hasn't been mentioned yet, is every industry project has a supervising academic, and that academic isn't there to tell us what to do. They're there to give guidance, and obviously, they're involved in our assessment ultimately, but they're there to give guidance and as a resource themselves. And I found that mentoring, certainly through one particular academic I was lucky enough to have twice, so valuable, just individually, and to be able to have that, that person observe, they sit in on your team meetings, and they observe what's going on and everything, and then to be able to pick up the phone and get that feedback. And especially if you do get, the same academic, more than once, they get to see you grow as well. And that's what I think the 3 levels are all about. It's about growing.
That's fantastic. I'll just move on. We've got another question as well, but that summed it up really, really well. The academic support, which they're often industry-based academics as well, and that peer-to-peer, not only networking, that peer-to-peer growth. You've been supported as a learner, manager, taking the next step, and then you supporting the learners when you're in the leader phase of your 3rd project. But before I get to the next question from the audience, I did want to ask Michelle, this is testament, I guess, to the benefit of it. You've got another project with us, I believe. Just on mute, Michelle, sorry. It's the catch cry of 2020, isn't it? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yes, no, we are on to our 2nd project. So again, just feel so fortunate, because as I mentioned, being such a lean team, and we don't have the budgets, if I'm really transparent, to invest in support from the likes of consultants. So I definitely took up an opportunity to take part in a second project. This one was more donor based, sort of, donors of the future's kind of focus. So a little bit different. So the first project was all around our business partnerships. This is more broadly around donors. So yeah, excited to be a part of that, and really grateful for the opportunity.
And it's great that we have, and thank you, Oskar, I guess, and feel free to jump in here, where we bend over backwards to deliver the variety of projects that stimulate students in many, many different ways, insofar as not-for-profit in this case, commercial, government. What are some of the other ones that you've reflected on, Oskar, that have made an impact? And I must say to the audience, 99% of them, or if not 100% of them, are Oskar's industry engagement. It's Oskar that designs these projects with industry, and thank you, Oskar. It's really the hallmark of, and the biggest point of difference for the MBA. You work so diligently at that. You must love your job.
Look, it is fantastic. And I think that, when you hear these stories about, from the very first conversation that I had with Michelle and explaining how it can all work, and then seeing what happens at the end and the experience that Linda describes, I think that's, again, where the real reward comes. And for us to be then able to articulate that to future students of what that actually looks and feels like, this opportunity is really great, because often it's just how we say it, and it's like, well, what does that actually feel like? And so it's really great to have Linda here actually explaining it, then Michelle as well, giving that example. We've had some really fantastic projects that have made big differences. Everything from stuff with the Red Cross that's been really impactful. Some things that we did recently with the ACT government in relation to sustainability and single-use plastics. And then some, really creative, this one that we just did last trimester. Daniel will remember this with the drone technology coming in from Uber, and Melbourne being earmarked as one of the places that they'll try that travel Uber stuff. And there's just the diversity in the portfolio, and the ability for students to walk away and say, this is what I learned. This is how we changed this organization. That's, for me, when we hear those stories, that's just such a rewarding thing to be a part of, that I'm really grateful for. And I think that I often will when I talk to future candidates, I tell them about this experience, and about, if you've been in this particular industry for a very long time and you'd love to see what it's like to be in here, then this is where this opportunity really comes to life. And I think that that's really a really interesting thing that we can offer, other than saying, that, there's different styles of industry projects, as you mentioned, Daniel. And often they're very research in nature, and that's the way, because it's been structured by the university. But Michelle will be first to tell you the way that we do it is very different. And it's about us saying, you tell us your problem. You tell us what you're struggling with, because a student wants to do something that's going to be used, that's going to be rolled out. There's no point us saying, we think it would be great if a student group did this. And so that's why when we provide the request for service, it's this blank canvas. You tell us what challenge you're facing. We'll put the team together and we'll help execute some recommendations around that. And I think that's a really big point of difference about doing something that, and Linda I'm sure will testament to this, is that she can rest assured knowing that won't just sit there as a piece of work, and the blood, sweat and tears that went into producing it with the team, it will have impact. And I think that's a really thing that we're proud of.
And you touch on a really good point there. And I guess Michelle would see this in both projects. It offers the opportunity of applying the learning to what's going to happen in the future, not in a traditional academic program where you review what happened in the past. Mm-hmm. That's a huge, huge difference in the value of this program for candidates in looking forward, not backward as well. Future thinking. We do have some questions coming through. I'll direct this one to Linda, I guess. How many assignments are required per subject, and how many assessments per subject?
So, so for each of the subjects, there's 3 sets of quizzes, and they can be undertaken at any time, as long as they're completed by a deadline. And then there's one major assignment for each subject. And for the majority of the subjects, they're quite practically focused. So yeah, as Daniel was just saying, it's generally it's the way that they're structured is not looking at case studies or analyzing things in the past. It's around how would you do this. So for example, people and culture, one of the assessment options, because there is choice, but one of the assessment options was to write a diversity and inclusion plan. On what, it was up to you. And for me personally, I did mine on a neuro having a neurodiverse workforce, because I've got family members with autism. So it's about doing these assignments are quite generally are quite practical. There's the odd one that is a little bit different, but the majority are in that. So it's around taking the learning that you've got from the subject and then writing a business plan or writing a strategy for for ethics, for example, and so that pretty consistently that's how the subjects are.
Excellent. A good cross section of assessment. And the feedback then. So as I said before, you don't get feedback on an exam. What's the feedback like when that, and how's that delivered regarding your assignments?
Yes, so when you've submitted your assessments, so with your quizzes, you get that immediate feedback on what you scored for those quizzes, which is great, having not having to wait for your results. But with your assignments, they're submitted through, marked by your academic. And then they come back with comments and suggestions through them. So and particularly in the first trimester, in particular, I found that really valuable because getting that feedback on you structured this really well, or next time think about this, it's good so that you can continue to as you work through the rest of your subjects, you can remember those learnings that you've had before, and through the industry projects as well, with your supervising academic. When you're producing draft material, whether that's the project plan, the draft report, a final report, or the presentation, you're getting that continual feedback from your academic there as well. And so there's that opportunity to continually learn and apply that feedback through the whole of your industry project. Not just that one, but then when you move on to your second or your third.
There's some more questions, and I much appreciate both of your time, and I'm going to get through the last bit a little bit rapidly. The one thing that I do want to touch on for everyone's benefit is the partnership, how we partner with the universities, and we do that globally, obviously. But someone, Cohen, has mentioned, and thank you for your question, if he sets aside 20 to 25 hours a week, is it achievable to complete the MBA full time? Is that more than what you did, or would you say that is more than achievable in that time frame?
Oh, look, that's I certainly didn't spend that amount of time. So absolutely, if you're able to commit to that, then full time is achievable. Yeah.
And as I said before, everyone's different a bit, I guess, because I've had students that have reported less than that, and I've certainly had students that report more than that. And when you break it down, it's what you get out of it too. So everyone studies a little differently. I know there's students that may take an academic reading, print it off, read it twice, highlight every section that needs to be referenced, and things like that. So and they do a lot more hours per week. And it comes to mind one of our alumni, Kunani. She was forever traveling in an exec role with Toyota. So she'd print everything off and read everything 2-3 times to really immerse herself in each unit. And she was doing, 25, 30 hours a week. If you don't have, or, the intent is to get the learning outcomes, you may learn how to study more efficiently, look through the academic readings, highlight the sections that you need and then reference that in your assignment and move on, and you study a little bit more efficiently in that regard. So everyone's a little different in that way, but I think in answer to your valued question, yeah, certainly if you budget that many hours per week, the other benefit is, if you're applying the learning from the assignments to your role, then hopefully some of your study time is actually going to be productive with you strategically working on your role and not in it as well. We've got some more questions coming through. How much opportunity is there in the assignments and assessments to incorporate elements of one's current work? Well, exactly, that's, I guess, Linda, is there the opportunity of applying the learning to your current role is the question.
Yeah, I guess it does depend on the subject and the role that you're in, firstly. But certainly, I had opportunities to incorporate what I was doing in my assignments with things that were in my personal life. So as you mentioned at the beginning of the call, Daniel, I'm on the board with Writing for the Disabled South Australia, but prior to being on the board, I did have a level of involvement with them. And so one of my assignments, my final assignment for entrepreneurship was actually around a new value proposition for RDA. And so I was able to spend the time on my Ducere assignment on something that I knew was going to happen in the real world. And so, so that was really valuable and quite exciting to be able to do something that I knew was going to be real. And then, following that, the work that I did in that assignment, we've used for grant applications. Brilliant. And we're working on a full business plan for that new venture. So so that there definitely is some opportunity depending on what your role is and what option you've chosen for your assignment.
Whenever we catch up with alumni, we absolutely love asking the question, have you applied the learning to your role? Someone's asked also here, thank you, Kath, for your question. How much time if you do the least amount of subjects at a time? We say budgeting 7 hours part-time, 7 hours per week per unit is a rough guide for most people. So, Kath, if you're doing 1 or 2 units, you're doing 7 or 14 hours a week at the most, basically. I'm going to ask for last questions, and whilst we're waiting for the last questions to come through, and before I sincerely thank our guests this evening, I just wanted to explain our relationship with universities globally. We here at Ducere design the content, as I said earlier on, with industry engagement always. Our university partners, whoever that may be, in this case, University of Canberra and University of Torrens University Australia. We partner with UNE here in Australia with another MBA as well. They accredit that content. So they produce this, your qualification comes from the university, but then it's us that support you as a student, as a valued student and as a customer, to be honest, along your learning journey. So all of the academic delivery, all of the learning platform that you access to gain insights into the content or to access the content and your student and academic support is with Ducere. The benefit for students is, I guess, you access content and support developed by us. I guess an innovative, agile business school, yet the accreditation of a respected university in those partnerships that we have. And for everyone's benefit, we were worried with COVID. We knew we were well placed, being an online business school, but we weren't sure because we knew every university would very quickly need to go online. With the onset of COVID, it is important that we learn from each other with these. So in this scenario, I guess we saw our search go up 50% and our clicks go down 50%, which was hugely concerning. But it was completely understandable because of the complete unknown we were facing. So everyone was at working from home window shopping, everyone was searching, no one was committing. That was for 2 weeks. Once it became the reality that it was going to actually be a while, we've had record intakes ever since, and actually announced a brand new university partner that's been expedited due to COVID in University of East London, where we've got an executive MBA and an MBA in luxury brand management that we've just launched in the last few weeks. So I had brown hair before COVID. We've been that busy since. It's been really, really exciting for everyone. The inspiration though is from stories like both of yours, Michelle and Linda, where you've actually, in your case, given an opportunity to students to learn from a real industry challenge or scenario in which they're working towards. And Linda, your story is a great inspiration, and what you've done, how you've leveraged the opportunity that you've invested in yourself by doing your MBA and seeing where you are now is inspiring. And that's what it's all about for us, is you're the stories that we want to promote more and more of, because that's what it should be about for everyone as well. If there are, I'll just do one last check on the last questions. If there are no other questions, from here, Oskar and Josh will certainly, and myself, are here to assist anyone at any time in your life decision to undertake the investment in yourself. It's a very, very wise thing that you've even chose to attend tonight. And if anyone needs a recording to share with others, we'll send that around first thing in the morning once it's downloaded. But I do want to take a moment just to say a sincere thank you. Michelle, it is people like you and organisations like yours that we love working with. You make a difference in people's lives in the true sense, and you make now a difference in people's lives who are investing in themselves considerable time and money to better themselves, and for you to provide the quality of project and commitment and time that you do to enable that is, we couldn't be more thankful. Thank you, firstly, Michelle.
No, thank you very much. It was such a great experience, and it still is. We're going through our second project, so I'm definitely still part of that project. And yeah, I just want to say thank you. And just in the charity landscape, it is very competitive. So just the work is so valuable around our proposition, and it's really helping us to create a lot more awareness of what we do and the impact of wish granting. So yeah, thank you. Loved it.
That's the least we can do, and hopefully we can see future outcomes and report on them potentially, to go back to even our students like Linda that were part of the project, and go back to them and say, hey, actually now Make-A-Wish have actually got this client on board, or whatever it might be, because I think that's the gift that keeps giving for both, and would also, I guess, in your circumstance, Linda, make you swell with pride in the sense that you know you've made a difference in a really meaningful way as a part of your learning as well. Thank you, Linda, just as importantly as well, for your time again. You inspired us during the recent virtual graduation that we had, and I hope and I know that all attendees have benefited from hearing from you this evening as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for inviting me to share.
There is one last question that I'll get to. Someone doesn't have an undergraduate degree. Would an MBA with Ducere involve in-depth knowledge of such things as algebra, etc.? Very good question. And Linda, did you do algebra during your MBA with us?
No. Did do finance though.
Yep, importantly.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting question going in, if you go in without having completed university study before. So there were, a couple of team members in particular that I worked with that did come into the MBA based on their industry experience and not any previous university qualifications. And I think when you do that, it becomes even more important to engage with other students and with your academics up front. And to certainly be upfront when you go in on that first or second subject, to be upfront with your academic that you haven't studied at that university level before, because it is a bit of a different way, learning how to reference it and things like that. But certainly the academics in those early subjects are aware that you're coming in and you may not have had that. So there is that level of extra support, that I certainly saw come through with documents and information that was being provided by our ethics academic and other early academics. I wouldn't say there's anything that you really need to know as pre-existing knowledge other than your general industry experience, and it's more about in those early days learning how to study at an academic level. It is a bit different if you've gone through, obviously than school. And I guess my number one tip to anybody who's going to study is, when you start a subject, the first thing to do, I would suggest, is have a read of what the assessments are, what the assignments are, and see if you can make a decision on which choice you're going to make. Because then as you're working through your subject, as you come across papers or ideas, you can make notes of those and start to work on your assignment as you're working through your subject material. And that's far easier, in my opinion, than trying to go back and go, well, oh God, I remember reading that in one of the readings. So that's my sort of hot tip if you've not studied before at uni level. But finance is probably one of the more challenging. I'd say it is one of the more challenging subjects. But in saying that, I don't come from a finance background. I've always laughed that it was my Achilles heel in my day job, and but the material and working through, I got really good results in that subject that I was quite happy.
It's as practical as we can make it. I couldn't think of doing algebra and calculus. I'd lose the will to live.
No, it's more about
my study.
it's more about understanding profit and loss statements and balance sheets, and
which is what you need in leadership. Absolutely. Ladies, thank you ever so kindly. Oskar, thank you also for your time this evening. It has been my pleasure to host the session. We will send it around as a recording. I look forward to hosting many, many more. We might even reach out for some feedback from attendees and provide that to the guests as well. I'll let you go. Have a lovely evening. Thank you kindly for your time. And if ever we can help anyone with their life decision as to what to invest in themselves, reach out. That's exactly what we're here to do. Thank you all. Have a lovely evening.